Joe Mackenzie here, your watercolor coach. Today we're going to talk about cerulean blue. So let's get started. Cerulean blue. This is the one I use. It's a Winsor Newton cerulean blue. There's also a cerulean blue that is slightly greenish. Mine is not the greenish tone. But cerulean blue really varies a lot when you look at different brands. Students come in with cerulean blue, and I've seen everything from ultramarine blue in the tube to cobalt blue to all kinds of things. So this is the brand that, as I said, that I use. So there it is right out of the tube, the first dab, and you can see the value difference when you add water to it. So it's a light blue. So now let's take a look at how versatile this is and the different ways that you can use it. So, I'm going to start with a triad. And this is it's going to be a blue, a red, and a yellow, because anytime you have a blue and a red and a yellow, you can do all kinds of mixing around the color wheel. And in this case, I have cerulean blue on the far left, I have a permanent rose in the middle, and a Naples yellow on the farthest right. And you can see they are different values. The blue is darkest in relationship to the other two. The Naples yellow is the lightest, and the cerulean blue, as I said, is the darkest. So just want to show you that right out of the tube, there are those value differences. So now let's take a look at some boxes and why, and one of the reasons why cerulean blue is super important to me. So let's say you are going to paint, let's pretend these aren't boxes. Let's pretend these were, oh gosh, what could they be? Well, they'll have to be boxes. I was thinking vases. I'm trying to think of something that's blue. Boxes will have to do. I put the three blues that are on my palette, which is an ultramarine blue, which is the darkest. The next is cobalt blue, which is the medium, and then cerulean blue is the lightest. And I've done the bottom square using those three colors. Now I'm going to use the square above it and just use ultramarine and use water to get to the value I want to get to, which is something that you have to do sometimes, but something I strongly advise against if it's possible. All right, so there's my first pass, and I didn't feel like they were saturated enough, so I'm going to do it again. All right, so that's the cobalt blue going in there. That's another ultramarine pass on the front of that box. Another ultramarine pass on the top box. All right, now the top box, those two sides are too close together in value. I'm going to have to come back and hit the front of that box again. So again, the bottom box uses the three different blues that I have on my palette. I have another blue, but I'm not going to talk about that today. But the three blues, which are ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, and cerulean blue. And that bottom box ends up being more saturated and has more color in terms of brightness and density than the top box. Now the top box again is representing using ultramarine blue as your only color and thinning it out with paint to get the value differences. So I'll say it again, the bottom box, I use three different colors to make the bottom box. I have the dark side in the front, medium on the side, and light on the top. And on the top box, I did not do that. On the top box, I used water to get there. And you can take a look at the two of them and decide for yourself which one you think is more aesthetically pleasing. All right, now I wanted to quickly demonstrate a cloud, which I've done before. And I'm not taking a lot of care with this. I just wanted to make some white forms. Because I find that when it comes to making white forms, if I can make cerulean blue, my dark blue, in a white form, then my forms will read as white more efficiently than if I use a darker blue. So let's see how that works. And there I am. I'm drawing a peony to get ready for the next example. All right, so there are the clouds, excuse me, floating in the sky, and I could use watered down ultramarine blue around the clouds, but instead I'm going to use cerulean blue. And that is going to still make the clouds read as white, even though you already saw there's not none of the white of the paper is left in there. They're full of color. And there's a sky going around. Cerulean blue works extremely well for a sky. As I said, I could have used a watered down ultramarine blue, but that would have been not a darker choice, but a less I don't know, I want to say maybe a duller choice. All right, now let's say you have a white peony, and what I want to show here is again using cerulean blue, which I use to mix with the rose and also with the Naples yellow. Because if I use those as a triad, then I've got a red, a yellow, and a blue, and I can make white forms, just like I did with the clouds, only now I'm going to do it with petals. Now I'm not taking a lot of care here, obviously. But I would if this was a real painting, and I would treat those petals just as if they were the clouds in the sky, but not introducing anything darker than cerulean blue. Cerulean blue is going to be my dark. If I manage to do that, then when I go around the form with a darker outline, which you'll see, it'll again make those forms read as being white, even though you already saw they're not white at all. So I use cerulean blue as my dark blue when I'm painting white forms, especially if I'm doing, let's say, a white pitcher or a white peony. So here we go. It's just to give you an idea of what happens to what looked like a colored form, almost a pinkish form, but it suddenly transitions into being a white form. And I'm going to make that even darker, make that pop even more. So to reiterate, what I'm saying is that for me, when I use cerulean blue in a triad, and the triad being those vertical stripes that you see above, it works very well in order to convey mass and form in white things. And that's what I use it for most of the time. I also use it for skies, and I'm going to do a quick demo here. Whoops. Oh boy, that's not right. Let's see. It often shows up in it often shows up on dark forms where you wouldn't expect it. For example, on the nose of a dog. So what happens here is I'll have a black nose on the dog, and then when it's appropriate, I will insert cerulean blue for a value that I see. I call that a color spot of value, and it just heightens the color. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in real paintings in just a second. But first, I just wanted to show you how it's done. All right, so there's the muzzle of the dog. I think yeah, a bit of a tongue. This is a rush job, but you get the idea. Making sure it's all dry now. This is how I would put in, say, a color spot of value. See that cerulean blue? It's just a color spot of value. All right, and I went back because I saw that my box on the bottom was starting to look not so saturated, and that was just, again, cerulean blue into the box. All right, so here's a painting of my dog Maggie, and you can see all the cerulean blue that's going on there. Those are all color value swap outs. I've swapped out the color for the color cerulean. I plugged in where the value of brown was, and it just heightens the color of the whole piece. You will often find it, especially because this type of dog is called a blue hound. There's a lot of blue underneath the skin, and that comes up through the fur. All right, now here's another example of what I was talking about with the white peony. I put in all those whites, but don't use any blue that's as dark as ultramarine blue, and it manages to keep me in the white range. So remember to keep the whites of your paper white, your paints wet, mass for value, mix for color, and that is one of the reasons why cerulean blue is extremely versatile and important to me. See you next time. Bye-bye.